Good morning, welcome back to TripleLRusticDesigns. In today's video, we're going to be making an 8-foot by 4-foot HDPE mold for pouring large epoxy projects. Stay tuned. So for this project, I picked up 2 of these 8-foot pieces of HDPE from a company in St. Petersburg, Florida called Kerbel Plastics. They have a ton of HDPE in stock, all different sizes. Most of the molds that we have here at the shop are 3/8 inch thick. I went with the 1/2 inch thick just so I can have more material for the way that I'm gonna make this mold. As we go on in the video, I'll show you what I'm thinking. I did buy a HDPE welding gun, a plastic welding gun. I tested it out on a couple small projects already, and I'm just not confident in my abilities with it to be able to do this entire 8-foot mold. And if I mess this up, then I've basically wasted about $280. One sheet of this HDPE 8-foot by 4-foot by 1/2 inch thick ran me $188. So I bought 2 of them. One of them is going to be the base, which you see here. The other one I'm going to be cutting down into strips for the sides. The first thing we need to do is cut the side pieces for this mold. So using the other 8-foot sheet of HDPE, I'm going to cut some 3-inch tall sides. And the way we're going to secure that to this base HDPE is we've got some threaded inserts and some bolts. We will be installing these threaded inserts into the base HDPE, and then we'll fasten the side pieces with the bolts. I've watched a couple other videos on YouTube making smaller molds this way. Nobody has done one this big, so we're gonna see how it works out, and hopefully it turns out good in the end and you guys can learn something from this video, and maybe you would like to try making a mold like this. So the first thing we need to do is I noticed that this end is not cut to 90 degrees. So I'm gonna break out the Festool track saw. We'll get it clamped down on here and we'll cut a nice clean 90-degree angle on this edge.
So if you guys aren't familiar with the Festool products, they make some of the best woodworking products on the market. They're located in Germany, and this here is the track for our Festool TS75 plunge cut track saw. This saw is incredible. It leaves the cleanest cuts, and when you're using the track, you can count on accuracy every time.
Now that we cut a 90-degree angle on this end, we're gonna go cut down our pieces to make the sidewalls.
These 4-foot by 8-foot sheets of HDPE weigh just under 80 pounds. Moving them by yourself can be quite difficult. Now I'm going to work my way down, laying out 3-inch marks, and then I'm going to break out the Festool track again, and I'm just going to line it up on all the marks, get it clamped down to the HDPE, and we'll be able to make our nice clean cut. With the HDPE having a nice straight edge, you could run this through your table saw, but working by myself, this seemed easier. So there we go, we've got our first sidewall complete. We're going to go ahead and set that off to the side, and then we'll come back, clean everything up, move the track out of the way, and we're going to begin laying out our 3-inch measurements again. We're going to repeat this process for a total of 4 times to create the sidewalls for this mold. Now that we have all 4 sidewalls cut, it's time to do a little cleanup, put the Festool products away, knock over this GoPro, and then we're going to get this extra piece of HDPE out of the way so we can begin working on building our mold. So the first thing I'm going to do is take one of the sidewall pieces and line it up to the base of the mold, and I realized it's just a hair longer than the base, and that's because we made that initial 90-degree angle cut on the base piece. So just going to confirm the measurement, take it over to the miter saw, and chop some nice clean 90-degree angle edges on it and get it cut down to size. Now that we have it cut down to the correct size, we'll get it lined up with the base piece of the mold. We'll check and make sure it's flush on both sides. And then we're going to break out some clamps, and we're going to use this to clamp the sidewall to the base of the mold. This will hold the sidewall to the base, allowing me to drill pilot holes through the sidewall and into the base. Next, we're going to begin laying out our markings where we want to drill our pilot holes. Being that this HDPE is 1/2 inch thick, I set my markings for 1/4 inch and just worked my way down, marking each spot that I wanted to drill a hole. I wanted to make sure that my holes were level, so here I am fighting with balancing a level on top of the drill while drilling. As you can see, it's not working too well, so I later used some Starbond CA glue and I just glued the level to the top of my drill. Now that we have all of our pilot holes drilled, we can take off our clamps, drop the piece of HDPE on the floor, leaving a dent in the corner, and get it out of the way so we can begin drilling our pilot holes in the base piece of HDPE for the threaded inserts. We are using a 7/32 inch drill bit for the threaded insert holes, and then we're going to switch over to a countersink bit, and we're going to countersink the holes so that the threaded inserts sit flush with the base piece of HDPE. I'll show you a close-up of what that looks like. This is the bit that I'm using for the threaded insert holes. I have it marked with a blue Sharpie so I know the proper depth. Here is the countersink bit that I'm just lightly adding a nice little countersink to the holes so that the threaded insert sits nice and flush. Next, we're going to take these threaded inserts that have a hex head and we're just going to lightly set them in the holes, making sure we don't over tighten or strip out the holes. So before I begin working my way all the way down, I want to go ahead and test out these bolts and make sure that they're properly securing into the threaded inserts and securing the sidewall to the base of the mold. Once again, we want to take this nice and slow. We don't want to go stripping out the threaded inserts or the threads on the bolts. You just want to tighten the bolt into the threaded insert until it's nice and snug. Now that we have a couple of the bolts installed, it's time to inspect it and see how it turned out. I was very impressed with how clean this was and how sturdy the sidewalls actually were with just a few bolts already attached. As you can see on the inside, we have a nice clean seam, and in the end we're going to use a thin bead of silicone in that crack, but even before the silicone, it's very impressive to see that nice clean seam all the way down. This is why it is so important to make sure you have 90-degree angle cuts on the pieces for the mold. As you can see, that sidewall piece is sitting nice and flush against that base piece, and it's just going to make it that much easier when we go to seal it with the silicone so epoxy doesn't leak out. Now that we know it's going to work, we can go ahead and start drilling our pilot holes all the way down the sidewall. As you can see, the level is CA glued to the drill, making it much quicker and easier to complete this process. Once all those sidewall pilot holes are completed, we'll go ahead and take the sidewall off, start drilling all the holes for the threaded inserts, and then I noticed that my pilot holes in a couple spots weren't deep enough, so I put the sidewall back on, drilled them a little bit deeper, and then took it back off, and then that's when we countersink all the holes and begin installing the threaded inserts. Once that's complete, we can go ahead and install our sidewall. Now we're going to go ahead and move over to the other 8-foot sidewall, and we're just going to repeat all of the same process. It's all the same steps as before. You just slowly work your way around, drilling the pilot holes, drilling the holes for the threaded inserts, countersinking the holes, and then installing the threaded inserts and installing the sidewall. I wouldn't consider this project hard, but I would consider it rather time consuming. Going around and drilling all these holes and installing all the threaded inserts and bolts, it does take some time. In the end, this project took me just over 5.5 hours to complete. Now that the 8-foot walls are complete, we can move on to the 4-foot end walls. We're going to have to chop our side pieces down to the 4-foot length, and here's the only difference. Unlike the 8-foot walls where we were only drilling into the base piece of HDPE, here on the end walls we're also going to be drilling into the sidewall pieces of HDPE, so that way we can secure the end walls to not only the base piece of HDPE, but also the sidewalls of the mold. For these end walls, I went ahead and drilled the pilot holes and installed the threaded inserts in the longer sidewalls, secured the end wall, and then I was able to go through and make my markings and drill all the pilot holes needed to secure the end wall to the base piece of HDPE. Once we had all of the holes drilled, we were able to get in there, install those threaded inserts, and then secure that end wall to the mold. We have that third wall complete, so it's time to move on to the 4th and final wall. It's going to be the same process as before. We're going to drill those pilot holes, and then we're going to start installing those threaded inserts into those side walls so we can secure that end wall and finish drilling our pilot holes. Once that 4th and final wall was complete, it's time to work our way around the mold, installing bolts in every single hole that we installed. We want to make sure that these sidewalls are really secure to the base piece of HDPE. Now that the mold is complete, it is time to take a step back and admire all of our hard work. I'd be interested to hear on what you guys think about this mold. Drop your opinion in the comment section below on how you think this mold turned out.
We just finished the project and it turned out really nice. The only thing left to do is get some silicone and run a thin bead along all the corners, because even though it's screwed like every 5 inches all the way around the whole border, you still want to seal it with some silicone so that the epoxy doesn't seep through and leak out. This project turned out way better than I expected. Like I said earlier, I originally bought a plastic HDPE welding gun, and I thought about welding this entire project instead of using the threaded inserts and the screws. And I'm glad I didn't try that, because no matter how much practice I would have done with the welding gun, I don't think I would have been able to weld this good enough that it would seal it and be as sturdy and nice as it turned out the way we did now. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video, and hopefully it helps you guys create some large epoxy molds for yourself. I know when I was looking for videos on how to make a large epoxy mold like this, there really wasn't many. There was a lot of videos about smaller HDPE molds, but I think this is gonna be the first video showing how to make an 8-foot by 4-foot HDPE epoxy mold. We're really excited to get some slabs, put them in this mold, and make some really cool projects. If you guys like this video, make sure you smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss all of our future videos. And drop a comment below on what you thought about making this mold. Would you have done something different? Would you have gone the route about welding the plastic or welding the HDPE? Or would you have done the same method as I did, where you put the threaded inserts with the screws? I'd like to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section below. As always, guys, thanks for your support. Thanks for watching the video. We'll see you on the next one.